Yesterday, we began talking about intensive pronouns. Our standard is that we can use intensive pronouns in a sentence. So to understand how to use them correctly, we need to know what they are and what their purpose is in a sentence. So we know a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun or another pronoun in a sentence. Our intensive pronouns all end with self. Yesterday, we started talking about reflexive pronouns and intensive pronouns. The list of reflexive and intensive pronouns is exactly the same list. So right here on the screen, we have myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. All of these are examples of intensive pronouns and reflexive pronouns. So if the list is exactly the same, how do we know if it's intensive or reflexive? That's our next task to figure out. An intensive pronoun can be removed without altering or changing the meaning of the sentence. So if we look at the example, leave it, I will do it myself. If we remove the word myself, leave it, I will do it, the meaning of the sentence is still the same. So that tells us that myself is an intensive pronoun. If we look at the next example, did you build that yourselves? If we remove the pronoun yourselves, did you build that? The sentence also still makes sense. So we know that yourselves is an intensive pronoun. If, on the other hand, you remove the pronoun from the sentence and it doesn't make sense, it is not an intensive pronoun. It would be a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive pronouns. I think this is number 5 on your sheet. Reflexive pronouns cannot be taken out or removed from the sentence because it alters the meaning or changes the meaning of the sentence. Taking out a reflexive pronoun changes the meaning or turns the sentence into nonsense. So if we look at the first example, you're going to write, I see myself in your blanks. If we remove the pronoun myself, the sentence says, I see. The sentence makes sense, but the meaning has now changed because we no longer see ourselves, so it's a reflexive pronoun. The next example, she sees herself. If we remove the pronoun herself, she sees still makes sense, but the sentence meaning is changed now. So that would be a reflexive pronoun. That was just a note. We aren't studying reflexive pronouns. It's important to know that reflexive and intensive are the same list of pronouns, but our main focus is on the intensive pronouns. So what does an intensive pronoun do? Intensive pronouns add emphasis. So they are placing emphasis back on the antecedent, which is the word the pronoun is referring back to. Let's look at the two examples. He did it himself. Himself is adding emphasis to the antecedent he. If we remove himself, he did it, the sentence would still make sense. So it's intensive. The next example says, we bought it ourselves. Ourselves is emphasizing the antecedent we. If you take out ourselves, we bought it, the meaning of the sentence is still the same. We are not doing the discuss box. You could put an X through it. Look at the following examples of intensive pronouns. So on your paper, you have 3 sentences. They are slightly different than what you're seeing on the screen, but you should be able to figure out what goes there. The first example says, did you blank make the cake? We want to emphasize the pronoun you. So our intensive pronoun would be yourself. Write yourself on the line. If we read the sentence, did you yourself make the cake? we are emphasizing you with our intensive pronoun yourself. If we removed yourself from the sentence, the meaning would still be the same. Did you make the cake? The second one, I might take a swim after dinner. I think your sentence says, I blank like to take a stroll by the lake, maybe. Either way, we want to put emphasis on the pronoun I. Myself would be the correct intensive pronoun. Write myself on the line. I myself might take a swim after dinner. Myself is emphasizing I. If we remove myself, it would still make sense. The last example. The author approved the sale. If we want to add an intensive pronoun, we don't know if the author is a male or a female. So in this example, we would put the author approved the sale, herself/himself. We want to put emphasis back on the author. If we remove those intensive pronouns, the author approved the sale. That sentence still makes sense. It sounds normal. It's not forced, but it adds emphasis. You could cross out the discussion box. We are not doing that box either. If intensive pronouns are not necessary, who would want to use them? Me. I want to use intensive pronouns. Let's take a look at some examples from well-known writers. He wondered, as he had many times wondered before, whether he himself was a lunatic. Himself is emphasizing he. That was written by George Orwell. We ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. Ourselves is putting emphasis on we. If we removed ourselves, the sentence meaning would stay the same. Parents wonder why the streams are bitter when they themselves have poisoned the fountain. Themselves is an intensive pronoun, putting emphasis on they. If we removed themselves, the meaning would still stay the same. It seems to me that if you tried hard, you would in time find it possible to become what you yourself would approve. Yourself is placing emphasis on you. If we remove yourself, the sentence would still make sense. So, to review, a pronoun replaces a noun or another pronoun. An intensive pronoun has self or selves on the end. Intensive pronouns are added for emphasis. If you take out the intensive pronoun, the sentence still makes sense. His self is not a word. Remember when you were asked, what does intensive mean to you? Think about how an intensive pronoun makes a pronoun more intense, more strong, more extreme. So, as your exit ticket, on the bottom of your yellow paper, there are two boxes. I want you to write 2 complete sentences using an intensive pronoun for each sentence. Do not use the same intensive pronoun for both sentences. Do not just copy a sentence from up above. Really try to use an intensive pronoun. When you write your sentence, if you remove the pronoun and the sentence either doesn't make sense or it changes the meaning, you did not write an intensive pronoun. I plan to check these when I get back on Thursday. So make sure you try to write them correctly. When you get done with this, there's another video for you to watch to practice intensive and reflexive pronouns. Do that, and then Mr. Boyd will have your next tasks for you when you get done. Have a great day.